1 hour ultimate horror stories.
Rain has a way of shrinking the world outside your house. The glass turns into a silver sheet, and the familiar lanes blur into shadows. For Ria, that monsoon was supposed to mean quiet evenings at her new apartment, reading, sipping tea, and waiting for her husband to return from his late shifts. But one night, the rain delivered something else. It began with a sound, a knock. Ria was on the couch, a book open in her lap, when she first heard it. A single, sharp talk against the glass of the living room window. She frowned, listening. Perhaps a branch, she thought, blown by the storm. But then it came again. 2 knocks, slow, deliberate. Her apartment was on the 4th floor. There were no balconies outside that window, no ledges, no way anyone could be standing there. Still, she set the book aside and pulled back the curtain just an inch. Nothing. Just rain sliding down the pane. Relieved, she let the curtain fall and sat back. Minutes later, 3 knocks, louder this time. Her heart stuttered. She stood, every step toward the window feeling heavier. She yanked the curtain fully aside. The window was empty, but on the fog glass, she saw it marks 3 small ovals, perfectly shaped like fingertips, pressed into the condensation. Fresh. Ria's throat tightened. She quickly rubbed them away with her palm, locked the window latch, and retreated to the bedroom. When her husband, Kabir, came home near midnight, she told him everything. He laughed gently. "It's just your imagination, Ree. The mind plays tricks during storms. Maybe the building creaks, or birds hit the glass." She wanted to believe him. For a few nights, nothing happened. The storm passed. The air lightened. She slept soundly. But then, a week later, it returned. At exactly 10:47 p.m., the knock echoed again, 3 deliberate taps on the glass. Ria froze in bed. Kabir wasn't home yet. She clutched her phone, staring at the closed bedroom door. The knocks came again, steady, patient. Finally, summoning courage, she crept out. The living room was dark except for the dim streetlight glow through the curtains. She slowly peeled the fabric back, and there it was. Not a figure, not a face, just a hand. Pale, pressed flat against the glass. Its fingers long, joints sharp. The hand didn't move. It just stayed there, palm against the window pane. Ria gasped and stumbled backward. The moment she did, the hand slid away, melting into the darkness outside. Her husband arrived 10 minutes later to find her trembling in the bedroom. He checked everywhere, balcony, corridor, even the rooftop access. Nothing. No footprints. No sign anyone had climbed. But on the living room glass, the handprint remained, clear as day. Kabir grew serious after that.
If it happens again, don't
he
go
said,
near the window.
"Don't go
Call
near the
me."
window. Just call me." But the following night, Kabir worked late again, and at 10:47, the knock returned. Only this time, it didn't stop. Tap after tap, insistent, demanding. Ria pressed her back to the wall, tears filling her eyes. Then her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "I'm outside.
Why
Why won't you
outside?
open?"
Why won't you open?
Her chest seized. The knocking grew faster, almost angry. She couldn't bring herself to look, couldn't answer. She sat frozen until the sound finally stopped around midnight. When Kabir got home, she showed him the message. His face drained of color. The number wasn't one she recognized, but Kabir did. It belonged to the previous tenant of their apartment. According to the landlord, that tenant had left in a hurry. He never explained why. The next day, Kabir confronted the watchman. After some hesitation, the old man admitted the truth. 2 years ago, a young woman had lived in the same flat. She was often seen waiting by that very window for her fiancé, who worked night shifts. One stormy evening, she leaned too far while waving, slipped, and fell 4 stories to her death. Since then, Tenants complained of knocks on the glass, always at night, always from someone who shouldn't be there. When there's a cell, Ria and Kabir moved out within a month. To this day, whenever rain lashes against a window, Ria says she feels her chest tighten, waiting for that sound. 3 slow knocks, a hand on the other side, and the terrible question, if she had ever opened the window, who or what would have stepped inside? During the monsoon, every city has its dangers. Fallen power lines, slippery roads, rising water. But sometimes, the real danger is what you cannot explain. For Sumit, a call center employee in Guwahati, the monsoon meant endless overtime. His shifts often ended after midnight, when the streets were empty and the rain left the air smelling of wet soil. Normally, he took the main highway home, but one evening he decided to try a shorter route, a narrow lane that cut through the older part of the city. That choice still haunts him. The lane was dark, lined with broken houses and locked shops. Rainwater flowed like streams along both sides. His bike splashed through puddles as he rode, careful but steady. Halfway in, he noticed the road ahead had flooded, water spreading across the path. He slowed down, unsure of its depth, and then he saw them. 2 figures stood ankle-deep in the water, a man and a woman, both dressed strangely in clothes that looked decades old, loose shirts and long skirts soaked by rain. They didn't move, they just stood side by side, facing him. Sumit hesitated. The streetlight behind him flickered, making everything swim in shadow. Finally, he called out, "Are you all right? Do you need help?" The figures didn't reply, but slowly, they began to walk toward him. Their movements were odd, too stiff, too synchronized, as if each step was carefully placed. The water rippled around their legs, yet their clothes never clung or stuck. They stopped just 10 feet away. Sumit could see their faces now, pale and expressionless, eyes too wide, too dark. A chill spread through him. He revved the engine, ready to turn back. That's when the man spoke. "Shortcut," he said, voice low, broken. "Take the shortcut." The woman echoed him. Same words, same tone. Shortcut. Sumit's skin prickled. He backed the bike, trying to keep his eyes on them. But when he glanced down for just a second to steady the wheel and looked up again, they were gone. The flooded stretch lay empty. No ripples, no footsteps, no sign anyone had been there. Shaken, he turned his bike around and sped back to the main road. But as he reached the corner, something made him glance in the rearview mirror. For a brief second, he saw them again standing right in the middle of the lane, water around their ankles, staring after him. The next day, he told his colleague about the encounter. The man's face went pale. "You don't know the story? That shortcut flooded badly in the 1982nd. A couple drowned there, trapped in their car when the water rose too fast. Since then, people say their spirits wait in the lane. Anyone who enters alone at night sees them." Sumit never took that route again. Even years later, he avoids narrow lanes during the rains, sticking only to crowded roads no matter how long it takes. The monsoon hides many dangers. Some can be explained: floods, accidents, poor roads, but others linger, unspoken, waiting on quiet nights when the rain drowns out the world. And sometimes, when you take a shortcut, you end up somewhere you were never meant to go. In Assam, tea estate roads take on a very different form during the monsoon. In daylight, they look lush and endless, but at night, the rain turns them into black tunnels, where even the strongest torch beam only reaches as far as your hand. The monsoon has a way of cutting you off from the world you know. Arun, a night guard for one of the estates, patrolled these roads on his motorcycle every evening. His job was simple: check the dirt tracks after the factory shut down, make sure no trespassers or animals had strayed in, and ride back before dawn. But one season, during the rains, his patrols changed forever. The first time it happened was on a Wednesday night. The rain was heavy, the road flooded in patches. As he turned sharply along a bend, his headlight caught something ahead about 50 meters in front of him. It was a lantern. Not a modern torch, but the old kind. A hurricane lamp, its yellow flame swaying as if carried by someone. A figure seemed to be walking with it, but the rain blurred everything. Arun thought it must be a worker who had missed his shift. He honked the horn. No reaction. The lantern kept moving ahead. He accelerated, but no matter how much speed he gathered, the lantern remained at exactly the same distance, 50 meters ahead. Never closer, never farther. He slowed and finally stopped. At once, the lantern stopped too. His headlight illuminated nothing but the wall of rain and bushes. The glow of the lantern stood still, almost patient, waiting. Arun shouted, "Who's there? This is private estate land." No answer. Only the roar of water on leaves. After 10 seconds, the lantern began moving again, drifting deeper into the trail. Arun's heartbeat quickened. He decided to follow. He rode slowly, eyes fixed on the faint glow. The lantern moved off the main road into a narrow mud track. Arun steered after it. The trail twisted between tall tea bushes, slippery and flooded. Then, as he rounded one turn, the lantern was gone. He stopped, dismounted, and searched with his torch. There was nothing, only mud, dripping branches, and puddles. But lying on the wet ground was a single burnt matchstick. Strange, almost fresh, as if it had just been struck minutes earlier. The next night, it happened again. Around 11:45, the lantern appeared at the same place, at the same distance. This time, Arun was determined to catch it. He gunned the engine, chasing the glow with all the speed his motorcycle could give. But just as he thought he was closing in, the lantern blinked once and vanished. Breathing hard, he pulled to a stop and turned to look behind him. In the puddles by his rear wheel, he saw something chilling the reflection of that same lantern light, as though it was standing right behind him. He spun around. Nothing, just black rain. For 3 days he applied for leave, but the supervisor refused. "Patrols are most important during the rains," he said. "Animals wander, poachers sneak in. You can't skip it." By Monday, Arun's anxiety had peaked. He decided that if the lantern showed itself again, he would confront it directly. Midnight came, and there it was, 50 meters ahead. This time, he drove straight into its glow, headlight flooding the spot. But when he reached it, there was no lantern, no figure, only the muddy road. And yet, on the ground, he saw something worse. Wet footprints, bare footprints, fresh, pressed into the mud. And their direction was wrong. They were leading not forward, but straight toward where Arun had been standing. His blood ran cold. Without thinking, he turned the bike around and rode hard back to the guard post. That night, his report in the logbook was short. Possible intruder, lantern sighted, no confirmation. The next morning, one of the senior guards approached him quietly. "You saw the lantern too, didn't you?" Arun froze. "You mean, this happened before?" The old guard nodded. Back in 1972, a worker drowned in the estate floods. People carried lanterns back then, not torches. They say his spirit still roams the patrol road, always 50 meters ahead, always just out of reach. Some follow it and lose their way. Some chase it and find nothing. But it never comes closer, and it never lets you go. From that day, Arun avoided that route at night. If he saw the glow, he turned away and rode back to the chowkey without a second thought. Measure. Locals still whisper about it. On heavy monsoon nights, a yellow light sways along the road. Some claim it's just an old lamp flame dancing through mist. Others swear it's a soul still walking the estate, forever 50 meters ahead, never to be caught. And the scariest part? Every guard who has seen it agrees on one thing. The moment you stop, the lantern stops too, waiting, watching, as if daring you to come closer. I bought the cheapest smart camera they had, the kind with a plastic lens cap that clicks shut when you're home. It felt comforting to hear that little tick when I said, "Privacy mode on." It made an empty studio sound polite. On Wednesday, the app popped a notification while I was at work. Motion detected, 3:12 a.m. I hadn't seen anything overnight because my phone was on Do Not Disturb. I opened the clip on my lunch break, expecting car headlights or the neighbor's cat in the hallway. The camera's view was off by a few degrees more window, less door. And the status overlay said, "Privacy mode, off manual." Between 1:37 a.m. and 5:12 a.m., there were 7 gaps in the timeline. The cloud had nothing to show me. I was sure I hadn't touched a thing. Back in the apartment that evening, small things were wrong in ways you can argue yourself out of. The roll of paper towels had unspooled a little. The pan I never used wasn't quite flush against the others. My hoodie on the chair had its drawstrings knotted together. I told myself I was being dramatic and put the camera back where it should point. I changed my passwords. I toggled every security setting until the app forced a restart. Thursday morning, I woke to the smell of instant noodles. I don't buy instant noodles. It was faint, like a ghost of a smell. You could chalk it up to the hallway. I tugged open the cabinet under the kitchen sink. A paint can I use as a catch-all had a dusting of crumbs stuck in its dry ring of old enamel. That night, I sprinkled a thin layer of flour on the cabinet floor and closed it gently. I didn't know what I expected. Cockroaches, probably. It felt stupid even then. At 2:58 a.m., the camera clicked. I know that sound now, the lens cap unspooling. The app later showed the same status. Privacy mode, off. The live view froze, then restarted with the lens tilted down an inch, just enough to cut the cabinet out of frame. I was awake, in the dark, and I felt something that is hard to describe without sounding like a child. A ripple in the room that isn't air moving. In the morning, the flour had shallow scuffs through it, not roach feet, not any pattern you could joke about on a forum. It looked like knuckles dragging. I called the super. He shrugged and told me to call the police if I was scared. The officers were polite, thorough, and a little bored. They checked the door, the windows, and the fire escape. They checked under the bed because I asked, which humiliated me. They didn't check the ceiling. It's a drop ceiling, the kind with yellowing tiles you push up with 2 fingers. The hallway outside had one that sat a fraction low, enough to cast a line of shadow. I stared at it at 6 p.m., keys still in my hand. I stood on a chair and pressed up. Warm air, a draft that smelled like old food and detergent, a corner of a blanket, matted with lint. I climbed down and left the apartment with my backpack and my camera in my pocket. In the stairwell, I opened the app to turn the camera off, and the app told me, "Camera is currently controlled by guest." I never created a guest. The last activity log listed a device I don't own and a location that matched my Wi-Fi. I slept on a friend's couch, then returned with a locksmith and the super. We changed the deadbolt. We swapped the flimsy screws on the strike plate for 3-inch ones. The super knocked a few tiles aside in the hallway and said there was evidence of vagrancy. A water bottle, a granola wrapper, a foldable utility knife. He used the word like it was an explanation. That night, in my newly secured apartment, the camera clicked twice in the dark. A soft, mechanical blink. The lens cap stayed closed. In the app, a new scheduling rule had appeared under automation. Privacy mode on when home. The rule name had a smiling emoji I never use. And I know this is irrational. I know it is. But the name of the network at the top of my phone, the one I've never been able to change because the building set it up, flickered between my unit number and guest. Like someone had gone back to the ceiling because the camera would be polite again. Friday night is a trap and rideshare. Everyone's impatient. Half the calls are short, and the tips are promises more than money. I cherry-picked a ping a mile away because the rider had 5 stars and a profile picture with a dog. Headed to Lark Industrial, the note said. It's a business park that shuts down at 8 p.m. I almost declined, but the surge was orange, and car payments don't respect gut feelings. She slid into the back seat wearing a denim jacket and earbuds. Thanks for coming quick, she said, not looking up. Her phone screen reflected in the window. The rideshare app blew on one, a text thread open on another. Two phones.
Work and
Work
personal.
and personal, she said when she saw me notice. The new destination came through 3 minutes later. Side gate B. Unusual, but not against the rules. The highway emptied into dead zones of fluorescent lights. Side gate B was a chain-link throat leading to shadow. My headlights caught movement beyond the turnstile, just a cigarette flare and the ring of a metal watch when the hand lifted to scratch. Go a little past, then turn around, she said. Her voice had the cheerful patience of a person who routinely gets what she asks for. I flipped a U-turn one driveway early and pulled into a well-lit car wash, the 24-hour kind with cameras and coin machines and a sign warning that the property is monitored. Oops, I said, forcing a laugh. Missed it. This okay? What are you doing? It was the first time she spoke with emotion. Tight, surprised. Her fingers pressed the lock toggle on her door. I heard the click, then my click overriding it. I keep the child locks on. It makes drunks less dramatic. I'm just gonna call in to verify the drop location. They get weird about gates at night. I tapped the help button. The signal hung. She looked down, typed on the phone in her lap. 2 seconds later, the app told me the trip had been updated again. Meet at loading dock, lot C. That was deeper inside, past the cigarette. I can't go into private property without a live pin, I said, keeping my voice even. Company rules. Then end the trip, she said. I'll rate you appropriately. She smiled with her mouth, not her eyes. I ended the ride and stayed where I was for a full minute, windows up, doors locked. She didn't slam the door. She slipped out and walked away into the dark with her hood up, talking on one phone, the other still open to the app. The cigarette down the lane brightened, then died. The watch glinted again. I didn't move until a police cruiser cut across the lot and parked. The officer didn't get out. He just made himself large and obvious. Whoever was in the shadows stopped being a problem. Back home, I wiped down the back seat. Habit. A faint adhesive caught on my fingers near the underside of the passenger seat, sticky, fresh. I felt along the fabric and found a plastic disc the size of a coin, taped where you'd never see it unless you were kneeling in the footwell. When I held it to the light, it chirped. My phone pinged a notification I'd never seen before. Item detected near you. This item has been moving with you for a while. It wasn't mine. It wasn't hers anymore either, but it meant someone had intended the ride to be a first step, not a one-off. I drove to the sheriff's substation, handed the tracker over, and filed the report that vanishes into a drawer somewhere. The deputy was sympathetic, unimpressed, and very sure that nothing would come of it. 2 days later, my porch camera recorded a car easing past my house at 3:11 a.m. No headlights, just the dull glow of a dashboard. In the still frame, as it crept by, I could make out a wrist in the driver's window, a metal watch catching the streetlight. He didn't stop. He didn't need to. He knew the way back. The text came from a number labeled Building Management, with a logo I recognized from emails. It pinged the tenant group chat and my phone individually. Unit 4, B, urgent leak from line above you. Please shut off. Bathroom sink, stop valve. Send pic to confirm. It was specific, and the picture they sent was one of those how-to graphics, an arrow pointing to a chrome oval beneath a sink. I replied, on it, because water ruins everything in old buildings, and my floors are uneven enough already. The message came back fast. Thanks. If it's hard to turn, use a towel for grip. Also, please keep your door ajar in case Super needs quick access to check pressure. The phrasing caught in my head like a burr. We don't have a Super on nights. We have a contractor named Marv, who shows up when he shows up. I cracked my door anyway and slid the chain. In the bathroom, I reached into the cabinet and felt the valve. Stiff, then willing. I took a picture, sent it, and got a thumbs up and another instruction. We need to isolate main. Could you swing down to basement and look at blue-handled gate on the left? Send pick of position. I stood up too fast and hit my head on the sink. Stupid, but it cleared something. The number had no country code. The logo, now that I look closely, had a tiny mismatch where someone had copied the image and compressed it wrong. The red was a hair too orange, and no one from management ever says flat. Whoever was texting had said "you're flat" in the group chat, then corrected it to unit. Small, but sticky. I texted my neighbor across the hall. "Did you get leak message?" She replied immediately. "Yes, told me to open door. Also told me to go basement." We met in the hallway. Her door was on the chain, same as mine. Somewhere below us, something metallic clanged, then went quiet. The building made old building sounds all the time. This had intent. I called the real management number. A dozen emails had trained into my fingers. It rang too long and went to a voicemail that apologized for the hour. We stood listening to the stairwell, to the elevator cables hum. My neighbor whispered, "Should we check the basement anyway?" The text chimed again. "We really need that main off. Tenants above are flooding. Please hurry. Call 911. I said. My voice surprised me with how calm it sounded. Say someone might be in the building pretending to be management. We waited. I took one step down, then two, into the stairwell. The basement door was propped with a splinter of wood. It isn't supposed to be. In the concrete dust, fresh shoe prints overlapped and slipped. A man's voice echoed up, low and annoyed. "Try 4B, they're moving." We retreated and closed our doors, chains still on, hearts somewhere near our tongues. A minute later, someone tried my handle, with more courtesy than force, like a neighbor who didn't want to impose. They tried hers too. Then the splinter scraped free downstairs and the door shut soft as breath. The building went back to its noises. When the police came, they reviewed the hallway camera. The quality was muddy, framey, but it was enough. A man in a reflective vest and jeans with a contractor's clipboard went door to door and touched each knob. He had a set of keys on a ring as big as a bracelet, and a star of little metal bits, bump keys. Likely, he kept his head down. He never looked up at the camera because he knew where they are in buildings like ours. He didn't get in. That should have made it feel like a near miss, the kind you turn into a story at dinner. But later that night, after the officers left and the adrenaline drained, my phone vibrated one last time. "Thanks for being proactive, 4B, the message read. A photo followed. Our stairwell from the landing, my welcome mat in the corner of the frame. It wasn't live. The angle was off from our cameras. Someone had taken it earlier when they came to learn how our building breathes.
Story 1, Glid Pipe, Overtime.
In the office basement at night, a concrete corridor hummed with the low, steady drone of servers as Lena Shaw, a 28-year-old junior sysadmin with a messenger bag and a thermos, swiped into the data floor for an after-hours maintenance window. She paused at a laminated list on the wall that read, "Badge, lock, log, call security for any irregularities," then checked her phone's work order. Patch install, 11:30 p.m. to 1:0 a.m. The fluorescent lights flickered once as the motion sensor reawakened, washing pale light over a row of silent printers and a door marked MDF authorized only. She lifted her phone to her mouth and whispered, "Starting the patch now. Shouldn't take long." Her voicemail pinged back, the only reply. Everyone else was long gone. From the ceiling vents came the faint, maddening tap-tap of condensation, mechanical and steady as a metronome, like the building itself was counting. A disembodied squawk crackled from the basement intercom, and Rajiv from security asked if it was her down there. She answered yes, joking about clocking in for punishment, and he reminded her to holler if she needed an escort up. She knelt at the patch cable tray, fingers moving with practiced efficiency as the servers exhaled their heat. The air dry, recycled, faintly metallic. Then, without her command, a laser printer on a side table roused itself, rollers whispering alive, spooling a single page of internal emails she didn't recognize. Lena muttered to herself, "No Q job, not from me." Checking the panel, she saw no ID assigned, no job name, only logged as quick print upstairs. She pocketed the strange page and stepped into the stairwell, the lights breathing on a split-second delay, each bulb warming in sequence as her presence moved. Her footsteps echoed too big for the space, making her feel observed by the architecture. On the second-floor hallway, office doors with opaque glass smudged movements into ghost shapes while exit signs glowed like stubborn embers. She tapped her badge on a side door denied, muttering that the door was for facilities only. She noticed a new push notification. Badge access, 11:42 p.m., basement L, Shaw. Beneath it another line she didn't like. Badge access, 11:41 p.m., lobby L, Shaw. Her eyes darted to the dome camera's red eye, aware of her own outline in the convex bubble. Rajiv's voice asked if she doubled in because he got 2 hits on her card, basement and lobby. She firmly answered that she hadn't badged the lobby. A distant door seal sighed, rubber gasket breaking contact, followed by the faint wheeze of an elevator beginning to move. In the kitchenette, she flipped a switch, refrigerator humming awake and casting a strip of light. Holding the printed page closer, she realized it was fragments of an email chain about the building's security upgrade, a test of clone badge vulnerabilities. She muttered the word cloned, drumming the edge of the paper against the counter, staring at her badge like it was a double-sided coin. Then her phone vibrated with a chilling message. Unknown. You? Alone? Followed by a grainy camera still of her silhouette in the hallway seconds ago. She didn't reply. Heart pounding. She killed the kitchenette light and stepped into the dim hall where the exit sign's red glow stained the carpet. As she moved through the third-floor corridor, motion-activated lights bloomed in sequence like a wave of attention rolling with her. Halfway down, she saw a door marked Conference B propped open. Inside were a bowl of mints, a chair slightly off axis, and a cable threaded under the table to a blinking LED. She crouched and lifted the cloth drape, revealing a compact battery pack, a cellular hotspot, and a coiled cable new, not workplace issued. Lowering the cloth carefully, she backed away. Her intercom app popped up. Security broadcast. Please remain at your current location. Assistance en route. But another message overlaid it. Keep moving. She froze, staring at the conflicting commands, then at the dome camera, unsure who was speaking. She chose the stairs because elevators were for people who trusted cables. On the landing, she noticed a dark smudge on the wall, grease at shoulder height, like someone steadying themselves there recently. Her phone chirped again. Elevator, arrived reared. She hadn't called it. Peeking through the glass slit, she saw the elevator doors peel open, empty car, mirror bright. The doors stopped half closed and reversed, as if an unseen hand had interrupted the sensor. She pressed her stair badge and kept climbing, pulse racing. On the 5th floor hub, she entered an open plan of low cubicles under after-hours dimness. Scanning for hiding places, she tried the intercom. Rajiv, if that's you, say a code word from the lobby plaque. Silence, then the faint scrape of a shoe on carpet. Too close. She whispered, "Okay, we're doing this," palmed a metal stapler and slid between cubicles. A faint cough of colder air from a vent made her freeze. Across the way, she saw her own badge ID flash on the glass of a meeting room as if it had just unlocked. Crawling low, she watched dust motes glow in the light of a forgotten monitor. The meeting room door eased wider, an inch, then another. She whispered, "Walk away." The intercom crackled, and an unknown voice replied, "You're going to slip." Lena hurled the stapler, buying 2 seconds, and broke it through the cubicles. She didn't head to the stairwell, but instead into the fire door leading to the narrow electrical chase. Bracing hands and feet on the opposite walls, she climbed quietly, avoiding the ground, her own breath bouncing back hot and loud. Below, she heard a scuff, then a pause, then the unmistakable sound of someone sniffing the air like a predator. Trembling, she climbed slower, resisting the urge to rush. On the 7th floor server annex, she spilled out, breathing hard. She saw the elevator machine room panel and keyed in the facilities code she still remembered. "If you're in the car, you're in my house now," she muttered, selecting inspection mode and isolating one car between floors. Then her phone buzzed. Lobby camera offline. Another. Basement camera offline. Finally, "You're still in here." She pressed stop on the suspected elevator, locking it in the shaft mid-journey like a throat squeezed shut. A heavy thud answered from the wall, followed by shrieks of metal as something struck inside the shaft. Fear twisted into grim satisfaction as she backed away with a grin she didn't recognize. Into the intercom, she commanded Rajiv to call police and not open any door without a code phrase. When asked, she said the phrase, "badge, lock, log," but Lena didn't stay put. She went back through the chase, down past the sleeping floors, feeling the building like a living creature with nerves not her own. In the basement, the printer had spat out more pages, scattered like cards. One showed a still of a maintenance door outside the lobby, propped with a folded paper cup. She thought of fingerprints and tiny traces people leave where they think no one looks. She packed her bag and killed the work order. Patches could wait until after survival. The stairwell to the alley smelled of wet cardboard. She eased the door open to cool city air, car hiss, and sirens. As she pulled the door closed, she noticed a curved sliver of tape on the inside jamb, meant to stop the latch from engaging. She tore it off and shut the door with a final, beautiful click that sounded like survival. Her phone buzzed one last time, with a live thumbnail from the trapped elevator's camera feed. In the dark box, a small circle of light showed where floor met door. The image jittered as something moved toward the seam, patient, calculating, then stopped as if it knew the lens was an eye and refused to be seen twice. Sirens grew louder. Lena walked fast, shoulders squared, streetlight shadows keeping pace, printer pages folded in her pocket like proof she wasn't imagining it. She didn't look back, but the building did, its windows reflecting her until she vanished from the frame. Nadia, 33, a software tester, stacks moving boxes labeled kitchen and books while a floor fan pushes warm air past the tape gun's sticky chatter. Her new doorbell camera shows a fisheye view of the narrow hall. The lens stares at a door directly opposite with an old brass peephole dead center. She reviews a motion alert timestamp 3:18 a.m., where the hall is empty but for a faint ripple of shadow sliding under the opposing door. A spill of darker black like someone moved close, then away. Her phone pings. Her friend Layla texts, "You packed the important stuff?" Nadia types back,
Pack the important stuff?
"Passports, meds, external drives, laptop, sentimental postcards, the dumb lucky coin." She pockets the coin, a smooth worn disc, and gets to work folding her life into squares. From inside the wall, a thin scratchy noise rises, conversational in its persistence, like someone dragging string over metal. Later in the kitchen, Nadia unscrews the vent cover above the stove, sets the oily grate on a towel, and shines her phone flashlight into the duct. Dust fur, lost screws, a fleck of plastic, and snagged on a seam, a scrap of beige fabric like a torn bandage. She coughs, sneezes, laughs once at herself, of course. The vent is full of old building skin. A new motion alert at 3:37 p.m. shows a figure dart past the lens, too close to identify, shoulder to the wall, head down, timing their steps to the rumble of the elevator. Nadia speaks into the intercom app. "You okay out there?" Silence follows, then the distant slam of the stairwell door, as if someone rejected the elevator at the last second. In the building super's office, the super, mid-50s, paunch straining against his polo, Scrolls through camera feeds with one meaty finger. Look, nothing. People come and go. This is a city. Nadia presses. Somebody's close to my door at odd hours. The hall camera is picking it up. The super shrugs. You're moving out, yeah? People watch. People are nosy. She asks. Then why the scratching in the walls? He replies. Pipes, rats, whatever. Don't leave food out. He smiles like he is tired of being paid to hear the same complaint. At night, Nadia builds a fortress out of boxes and calls Lila, hands-free, speaker up, voice filling the space. Layla says, "Tell me a not ghost story." Nadia replies, "A not ghost story. Somebody with a key that used to fit keeps trying it and stops when they hear me move. Because losing access doesn't mean losing interest." Layla answers, "That's terrible." Nadia says, "It's realistic." She tapes the seam under the door to strike the oldest tripwire there is, pale masking tape that will curl if the door is open from the other side. The scratching returns, a little bolder, like it has found the correct rhythm of her attention. She goes still, holds breath, feels her own blood like static in her ears. The fans hum, fattening into a blanket of sound she can hide under. She creeps to the peephole across the hall. No, that's the wrong phrase. She crosses and presses her eye to her own brass circle of warped glass. The corridor distorts fisheye distances, making the far end both nearer and more unreachable, a cheap optical illusion that has protected this hallway for decades. Through the fisheye, the opposite peephole stares back, flat and blind. Nadia wonders whether a person can learn to look without being seen, whether they can learn to become a hole instead of a face. Later that night, a metallic tick at the lock, then another. Nadia whispers, "Layla."
Layla!
Someone's... The deadbolt trembles. The knob turns a degree and then a degree more, the way it would if handled by someone who expects it to open someday out of habit alone. Nadia reaches for the baseball bat she keeps behind the umbrella stand. The knob stops. Footsteps away, 2, 3, then the soft hiss of the stairwell door, sighing, as if someone is careful not to let it bang. She flips her camera feed and rewinds. The face is never there, only a shoulder and profile cut off by the frame. A hint of thick jacket seam and a capped brim. The next day in the laundry room, she yanks her clothes out of a dryer before the cycle ends because her skin is buzzing with the mania of finish and go. In the reflection of the washer door glass, the hallway behind her is a warped tunnel like a funhouse, and at the far end, a figure stops and turns like a needle finding a groove. The reflection confuses the angle. When she turns, the hallway is empty. That evening in the hallway, on Nadia's door, a strip of masking tape remains perfect and uncurled. On the opposite door, something new, a hair short, black laid across the jamb, too deliberate, too straight, like a trap set by someone who understands traps. She takes a photo, steps back into her apartment, locks the deadbolts, and then, after a beat, wedges a chair under the knob because that's what television taught her. She moves one last box and finds, wedged behind it, a folded utility bill with her name and a red pen circle around the due date and a scribbled note. "Goodbye, neighbor." She doesn't remember ever sharing a mailbox. At night, she decides to take out the trash because rituals keep the mind from inventing things unbearable to imagine. The stairwell is cooler than the hall and smells of concrete dust and old rain. Half a flight down, she stops because she hears breath that isn't hers, thin and sudden like it belongs to someone who didn't expect to be heard. She steps backward, one at a time, heels finding the edges of steps she has memorized through repetition. The breath stops too, as if it has decided to become the building again. Late that night in her apartment, she leaves a note for herself on the inside of the door. "Don't open for voices." Her phone buzzes with a new alert from the hall camera. Motion detected. 2:19 a.m. She plays it. The opposite peephole, black and featureless, grows slightly darker for a second, like a pupil dilating, then returns to matte. Nadia doesn't sleep. Dawn leaks in like gray milk through the curtains. In the morning, she checks the tape at her door untouched. She checks the hair across the opposite jamb gone. On the floor by her mat is a key tag, stamped with the building address and the word master ground down until it reads Astor, like someone tried to make it ordinary and failed. She knows what to do. Photograph, email management, insist on a lock change and copies of logs, replace the cylinder with one she purchases and hands to no one. She stands there a moment longer than she needs to, listening to the walls breathe, because sometimes the only honest ending is the one where the threat doesn't need to show itself again to be real. She slides the deadbolt, the satisfying shove of metal into place, a small act of architecture she controls. The door closes on the sound of voices outside, neighbors, mundane sounds that don't cancel the other ones, only cover them. Cold pre-dawn air cuts through the foothill trailhead, filled with sagebrush and dust. A chain-link gate yawns open where a ranger padlock hangs like a warning. Danny Ortega, 41, a volunteer search and rescue tech with a scraped knuckle and a headlamp, slings a small pack and checks his radio. Dispatch crackles. We have a late ping from the missing party's phone. Canyon wash east of mile 3. Last seen sunset yesterday. Proceed with caution. Terrain unstable from last week's storm. Danny replies, Copy. On foot. Solo until Team 2 stands up at 600. He steps onto the trail. The world still blue and thin, the horizon barely considering pink. He moves with economy, hydrate, breathe, check footing because speed amplifies error. An error here means a broken ankle and a long wait in the cold. The ping location on his phone jumps once, then settles, a green dot pressed against a contour line like a fly on glass, cutting off the main path. He follows a scarred social trail marked with bike tracks and deer prints, the kind people make with misplaced optimism. A cairn 3 stacked stones sits at a fork where no official marker exists. He notes it for return and veers left toward a narrowing wash. The sand accepts his weight and records his passage. Canyon walls closing in, his headlamp bouncing light back at him. He listens. Wind. A distant freight train. Gravel shifting under something that isn't him. Hey, he calls softly. Sar, if you can hear me, call out. Only silence. Then a faint scrape like a shoe sliding on rock ahead. Moments later, his headlamp finds a black knit glove snagged on a brittle branch. He bags it, marks a waypoint, radios it in. Dispatch logs it. Team 2, 45 minutes out. The wash deepens. Walls carved by runoff. Storm damage chews at the banks. Shelves waiting to collapse. Then another cairn. Newer stones. Damp sand, still clinging from someone's fingers. It sits in the middle of the path. Not at a junction. Like a trick. Danny steps around it, resisting the urge to kick it apart. His radio whispers a strange new voice. Copy waypoint. Proceed. Watch your footing. He freezes. The frequency is correct. Dispatch, confirm last. Real dispatch answers. Clipped. Negative. Last transmission from us was Team ETA. Danny powers his radio off. Counts to 5. Powers it back. Someone is stepping on their channel. Ahead, a phone vibrates. A domestic sound, absurd in the canyon. Hello? Call out. Danny kneels, shifts rock, finds it. A cracked smartphone still warm. He pockets it, glimpsing the lock screen photo, 2 sisters laughing at a picnic. Behind him, gravel crunches. Fresh prints overlay his own back trail, smaller, worn tread. Someone is using his steps to cover their passage. I'm not alone, he says steadily. Team 2 is close. Please announce yourself. Silence answers. He presses forward, because backward is no safer. The wash tightens to a narrow slot. Sky ribbon overhead fades of stars. He tests each step carefully. His headlamp catches a third cairn balanced atop a dead branch, staged. Theatrical. The radio hisses again. Take the right shelf. Left edge is rotten, but there is no shelf. Danny mutters. Not today. An edge is left anyway. His lamp reveals a pit masked in shadow. He marks it with an orange survey flag. Anger flickers. Whoever's on the channel wants him off balance. The ground gives politely under his weight. He steps back, chest tight, then finds a safer line. His shin scrapes stone, the canyon reminding him who rules. At dawn, the wash opens wider. Scrub returns, birdsong braids into air, normalcy pressing in. But ahead, another cairn crowns a rise, topped with mirrored glass. His headlamp spits his face back in fractured pieces. Footsteps behind, more confident now. He shuts off his lamp. "You found me," he calls calmly. "If you need help, say it, or I will treat you as a threat." The footsteps halt. Silence again. He blows 2 sharp bursts on his whistle. The echo ricochets back altered, as if the canyon itself rewrote the sound. His pocket buzzes find my device. Device moved. The recovered phone stirs in airplane mode, or something linked to it. He waits, knowing patience is both trap and tool. The follower doesn't pass. They want him to move first. Fine. Danny kicks the cairn. Stones tumble. The mirror shatters, his reflection fragmenting. Behind him, the faintest flinch, a surprised exhale. He scans. There, a culvert hidden by reeds. A false path, 2 feet deep, enough to wrench a knee. He marks it, moves on. Not fast, but controlled. Dispatch finally calls. Team 2 on scene at Trailhead. Sound whistle if visual contact possible. Danny. I'm in the wash east of mile 3. Possible hostile shadowing. I'll approach the ridge. He climbs the ridge. Gravel to dirt. Dirt to crust. The slope feels like a throat clearing. Cresting. He sees the road. SAR trucks wait with hazard lights flashing like lighthouses. He doesn't look back. Looking back hands power to what follows. At the trucks, he drops his pack, hands off the recovered phone. "You okay?" asks the team lead. "Yeah. Someone tried to step on our channel. Someone built us a path. You didn't take it. Not today." Danny checks his own truck. Driver's door fine. Passenger's door fine. But the spare key magnet under the bumper gone. He closes his fist around emptiness, feeling the shape of the missing key. The sun lifts above the ridge, the wash behind him looking ordinary, which is the strangest part. He logs the time, the place. I was 30 minutes past midnight on the ring road when the sky broke open. Rain hammered the windshield so hard the wipers just smeared water into more water. An underpass loomed ahead, the kind that always floods, and a sea of red brake lights vanished into a sheet of spray. I eased off, hazard lights blinking, and rolled to a stop behind a stalled hatchback, half submerged up to its rims. The driver's door cracked open. A man stepped out, hunched, his shirt plastered to his skin. He waved at me with a shaking hand, then pointed down at his tires. I cracked my window 2 inches. He shouted something I couldn't hear, rain drowning everything. He moved closer, eyes too wide for comfort. "Phone?" he mouthed. I held up mine. He nodded quickly, then pointed behind me, past my car, toward the shoulder, where another figure stood under the underpass, just inside the darkness, like a statue in a niche. I hadn't noticed him. He didn't wave. He didn't move. Traffic had bottlenecked. We were 3 cars deep, trapped between the flooded dip ahead and a concrete barrier behind. The man outside rapped on my window again, harder. I flinched. Water beaded his eyelashes. "Call?" he mouthed, teeth chattering. I told myself I was being paranoid. I thumbed 112, pressed the phone to the glass so he could see. He leaned closer, breath fogging the narrow slit of my window. A knuckle tapped the rear passenger glass on the opposite side. I froze. The second figure had vanished from the underpass. My breath caught so suddenly I coughed. In the mirror, a blur slid along the blind spot of my car, low and quick. "I'm calling for a tow," I shouted, for show, and hung up before it connected. My doors were already locked. I used my left hand to kill the engine, then drew the key out as quietly as I could. The man's eyes followed the motion. Something like calculation flickered there. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Behind me, the last car in the line lurched, then reversed, tires spitting water. A horn blared. It jerked again, angled, mounted the shoulder with a groan and clawed past us, scraping muck, mirrors nearly kissing concrete. As it squeezed by, its driver honked and gestured frantically for me to follow. The man at my window saw it too. The smile slipped. He stepped back, then banged the glass once, as if to hurry me. The knock was too angry to be a plea. I threw the car into reverse and mimicked the other driver, heart punching at my ribs. Tires spun, then caught. The back of my car fishtailed, water blooming up in dirty wings. I didn't look at the man again. I didn't look at the underpass. I scraped past the stalled hatchback and a concrete scab. The wheel jerked. A shadow broke from the darkness and slapped the passenger handle. It rattled, but held. I punched the accelerator. The car bucked up onto the shoulder, and then, suddenly, I was free, skidding onto the on-ramp as water sheeted off my windows. At the petrol pump a kilometer up, light and people and noise felt like waking from a chokehold. The other driver was there, white-knuckled on his steering wheel. We didn't talk at first. Then he said, "They pretend to need help when it floods. 2 men, sometimes 3. Doors, handles, anything open." The CCTV attendant nodded grimly, like this was old news. "Happened last week. Pulled a woman out through a half-open window," he said. "We told the police. They patrol now, when it rains. I still drive that road sometimes. When it starts to pour, I don't touch the underpass. The feeling of that hand on my handle, the sudden, intimate jolt of someone trying my door in the dark comes back as clean as the rain on my face." The monsoon had a way of getting inside our building no matter what the management promised. By the second week, the paint bubbled in little blisters near the baseboards, and the stairwell smelled like wet newspaper. The power line sagged, and the elevator died the first storm. So the night the lights went out, no one was surprised. We lit our candles like it was ritual. On the 3rd floor, you could hear the rain louder, like a curtain drawn right outside the hallway. I was alone. My roommate had gone home for the weekend. I set pots under our leaky kitchen window and moved the rug away from the balcony door. And then someone knocked. 3 slow knocks, then a pause, then 2 more. I checked the peephole. It was fogged with condensation, just a dull circle of light and a distorted silhouette. "Yes?" I said. "Maintenance," a male voice answered. "Leak checks. Manager sent me." We had a rule in the building chat. No letting anyone in without ID when the lights were out. I asked to see his badge. He held something small up to the peephole, but the lens turned it into an abstract dark shape. "Can you show it to the camera in the lobby?" I said. "I'll call the manager to confirm." Silence. The dripping in the kitchen seemed louder. The man shifted. The floorboards in the hall creaked. "If I go down, I can't come back up," he said, almost annoyed. "It's raining like hell. Just open for a second." Something about the way he said second made my skin pull tight. I kept my hand flat against the latch anyway, feeling the cheap metal warm under my fingers, and I decided to make noise. I dragged a chair across the tiles. I turned the television up on the phone to some loud show laugh track. "I'm not alone," I called. "Just wait. Manager is on his way." Another silence, but this one had weight. Then the softest exhale through teeth, right up against the door, like he'd leaned in close to listen. The peephole darkened completely. I stepped back. A door down the hall opened. My neighbor, Mrs. D'Souza, old and fearless, peered out into the black. "Who's there?" she called. The silhouette at my door moved, quick and smooth, away from the peephole. I didn't see where he went. Mrs. D'Souza clicked her tongue and shut her door again. 5 minutes later, my phone finally pulled in a message through the weak cell signal. "Manager, no checks tonight. Keep doors locked." Police advised. Someone tried door handles on 2nd floor. I didn't sleep. Around 2, the rain lightened enough that I could hear subtler sounds. The building settling, water dripping into a bowl, the wind nudging the balcony door. Then something else, bare feet slapping lightly against concrete, somewhere in the stairwell. They paused outside my door. The handle twitched. Once, the weight of a person leaned against the door so gently the wood sighed. I texted the group. He's on 3rd, outside 305. A light flicked on under Mrs. D'Souza's door, then another across the hall. The stairwell burst into echoing voices. All at once, "Who is it?" "And police are coming, and we see you." The weight disappeared. Feet, fast now, scuffed downward, then the heavy metal door to the ground floor slammed against its stopper. A single, gunshot loud sound. In the morning, there were wet footprints on the landing, man-sized, tracking from the stairwell to our door and then off toward 309. A police officer took a photo with a bored expression.
Police are coming!
Like this was ordinary, Facebook-level petty crime. But near the stairwell window, where the paint blistered and the rain blew in, we found a small crescent of dried mud with a tire tread pressed into it. Not car tires, the thin, exact pattern of a scooter. Whoever he was, he'd ridden it up onto the front stoop, under the overhang, just out of sight of the street, and waited for the lights to go out. I still hear the breath through the door sometimes, when it rains. We should have turned around at the tea stall when the owner said the pass floods by evening, but we had a hotel booked, a friend's birthday, the idiotic belief that an extra 20 kilometers was nothing. By the time we reached the valley road, the clouds had fallen low enough to crawl. Visibility was a tight tunnel. The wipers clicked on frantic repeat. Mud washed across the asphalt in thin, writhing snakes. A hazard light flashed ahead. A small sedan parked at an angle, nose to the barrier. A man stood in the lane with both arms up, as if directing planes. He was soaked through and shaking. I slowed automatically. Aditi beside me put a hand on the dash. "Careful," she said. "Careful." He came to my window and knocked. Up close, his face was raw with cold, lips bluish. "Help," he said, too loud over the rain. "My wife. She's
Help!
in the ditch.
My wife!
She slipped."
She slipped into the ditch!
He pointed into the darkness beyond the barrier.
They know where I am.
I looked
We
where
have
he
to leave
pointed.
now.
Beyond the metal rail, the ground dropped off into brush and rocks, and then the blackened gleam of a flooded ravine. "Call 112, Aditi said, already unlocking her phone. He shook his head too fast. "No time. The water has just come. Just look, please." Something about the way he didn't look at Aditi, how his eyes kept darting up the road behind us, pinged a warning I couldn't place. My high beams washed the hillside with light. Raindrops glittered in suspension. No movement, no cry. Across the ravine, deeper in the trees, someone flashed a small light, twice, and then killed it. Aditi pinched my wrist. "Drive," she said. "Now." The man saw it in our faces and stepped closer, his hand reaching for the rear door handle. It didn't open. Child lock. I eased around him, tires parting water, the car's nose brushing the barrier with a metallic hiss. He pounded once on the trunk and shouted something I didn't catch. In the side mirror, the small light across the ravine winked on again, and two figures detached themselves from the trees, sliding down toward the road, half hidden by brush. I expected guilt to flood me. It didn't. Only a taut, vibrating focus, the kind your body conjures when it decides to keep you alive. I pressed the accelerator until the engine whined. We took the next bend too fast, and the car skated for a breathless second. Then the road opened onto a construction turnout, and there Miracle of Miracles sat. A parked highway, patrol SUV, two officers hunched inside watching the weather like it was television. We told them. Their faces closed. One stood so quickly his notebook fell. He spoke into his radio and waved us to follow. We turned and crept back, blue lights washing the rain into lines. By the time we reached the hazard light, the sedan was gone. Mud slicked the shoulder where tires had turned hard, then hurried away. The ravine was still empty and loud. One officer walked the beam of his torch along the barrier and stopped. He bent, then swore. A length of nylon rope lay looped around the lower rail, still warm, the end cut clean. The officer looked at us and shook his head. "Third time this month," he said. "They stage a breakdown or an accident. They get you out of the car. The ones in the trees take your bag, your keys, sometimes the car, if you fight." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. He kicked the rope into the ravine like it offended him. We gave statements in the blue-lit rain, steam rising from the hot hood. He told us not to drive the pass in storms. We laughed, too high and thin. When I finally slept that night, I dreamed of the man's hand closing around the door handle that didn't open, and somewhere in the trees, a flashlight blinking twice, a signal I will always recognize too late. I got into the cab because of the rain. That's the truth of it. I would have waited for my friend to come back with a car if the sky hadn't torn itself apart. Instead, I watched the app driver inch along the curb with his hazards on and slid into the back seat, shaking rain from my hair, already apologizing for the mess. He smiled in the rear view, small and polite. He had the look of a man who'd driven too many hours, eyes a little flat, knuckles big from gripping a wheel.
Bad night.
"Bad night," he said.
Tell me about it,
I said. We pulled into traffic, moved 2 car lengths, stopped. The water ran down the windshield in veins. He took a turn I didn't recognize. "Shortcut," he said. "Main road is river." I glanced at the route on my phone. The blue line had rerouted by itself, wriggling through back streets toward an underpass I knew flooded, even in mild rain. "Let's avoid the underpass," I said. "It's always bad." "Not tonight," he said. "They cleaned it." He said it with the certainty of someone who was quoting someone else. Halfway down the feeder road, he rolled his window a crack to clear the fog. The smell that came in was sweet and rotten, like wet leaves gone sour. We hit a pothole. The car's interior lights blinked, then came back. I pressed the window button to get some air. Nothing. The driver tapped the child lock switch on his door, casually. "Sorry," he said.
Please stop.
My last passenger was a
Get
kid.
out.
We hit the underpass. The water lay there in a shallow, deceptive mirror, black and oiled with rainbow. Cars ahead of us were turning around, 3 pointing dangerously close to the wall. My driver didn't slow. "No," I said, too sharp. "Please don't. I'll get out." He didn't look back. The tunnel swallowed us. Water rippled over the floorboards with a wet hiss. The car in front sputtered and died, hazard lights stuttering a heartbeat in the dark. The driver's phone on the dashboard lit his face from below, and for the first time, I saw his jaw working like he was chewing on nothing. I went very quiet inside. I opened the app and hit the emergency button. It spun, thinking, as if the storm had reached into the code and slowed that down too. I pretended to scroll my messages and instead opened a chat with my friend. "Underpass. Child lock on. Call me." I said, "I'll pay you extra to stop." He didn't answer. He kept both hands on the wheel, rigid. The tow truck lights hit us first, yellow bars strobing water into gold. They were parked just beyond the underpass, like a lighthouse for the stupid. A man in a reflective jacket waded toward us with the determination of someone who makes a living off other people's bad nights. He slapped the driver's hood. "Turn around," he shouted. "It's deeper by the drain." My driver rolled down his window and leaned toward him with an eagerness that felt wrong. "Can you push?" he said. His eyes slid to me. The tow guy squinted past him, saw me, and took in more than I said. He jerked his chin at me, then reached across the driver with a practiced suddenness and popped the child lock and the manual door lock in one motion. He pointed at me, then at the sidewalk inches above the waterline. "Now," he said. It wasn't a suggestion. I stepped out into shin-deep water so cold it bit. He took my elbow, steady and impersonal, and hustled me up onto the higher ground. Behind us, my driver killed the engine, then started it again, then killed it. Indecisive. The tow guy didn't look back. He put me under the overhang of a closed shop and handed me a foil blanket like the ones from the news. "Call someone," he said. "Don't go with him." That's when I saw the other tow truck, unmarked. pulling up silent. No lights. 4 men in the bed, hunched under a tarp. They had the wrong look. Not of work, but of waiting. My driver lifted his hand at them, and their faces tipped up toward me. The tow guy stepped between us, the foil blanket loud in the rain. He said nothing, just stood there like a thin barrier made of bones and choice. A police jeep rolled in behind the second truck, lights on but siren off, everything scattered. The unmarked truck reversed so fast the tarp flew. My driver put his car in neutral and let it drift toward the wall like he'd meant to be stuck all along. At the station later, the officer took my statement like a man taking dictation, bored until we got to the part with the second truck. Then he looked up. "It happens," he said. "They prefer rain. Windows closed, roads empty, child locks. Don't blame yourself for getting in. When it rains now, I still take cabs, but I sit behind the driver, not behind the empty seat. I check the child lock before I roll, and I tip tow truck drivers like they are the last friendly people left when the city turns into water."